Final phase. We should be able to burst him if he doesn't do a move. We'll see. Oh, he's dead. So this is a Uber Elder witnessed. I'm gonna just use Exsanguinate. Reap isn't that great here because there's a lot of ads that die, and if the ads die, it resets the blood charge stack, so not great. This move doesn't really do that much because we have suppression. I guess she's getting healed by Maven. That's fine. Good damage. The merc is trying to grief me though. This is the bad thing about the hatred merc. He does have this stupid skill where he drops like a cage around you, around the enemy, right? But if you're like in melee range, pretty terrible, honestly. If you have phasing or if you have movement skill, obviously you can get out of it, but still pretty obnoxious that he does that. Yeah, it's complete cage. So that is definitely a downside of using Hatred Merc. He has that skill. But pretty easy fight overall at our like gear level. Doing another you can tank that, but it does put us pretty low. I think it's like 9,000 damage, so we're down to like 1k. So it could be rippy if something else hits me on top of that. I'm sort of being lazy with the bubbles right there with the degen pools because we're Trickster, right? That shit doesn't really affect us because we're action speed immunity. Otherwise, I would do a better job, honestly, with all the degen puddles. That should be the kill. Any loot? Any loot? Come on. Nope. So I'm gonna quickly go over my second build of the league. It's pretty basic. I wanted to make an Exsanguinate, some kind of trapper. We end up as Exsanguinate. I know people usually play with mines. I do think mines are probably stronger overall than trapping, just because the mechanics of mines is a little bit better than trapping overall. Like, you can detonate them faster, you can pre-stack them, and then they don't automatically detonate until you want them to detonate. So in this case, if we're trying to use bear trap to make them take more damage and then you detonate, that will work for mines, but for traps, as soon as they spawn, all the traps just go off as if they're in range. So, and just like mechanics wise in the tree, I think it's just a little bit better for the mines, and the support gems for mines is a little bit better. So overall, I think this build as a mine build is just a little bit stronger than trapping, but I just wanted to try out traps. So overall the build was decently strong, or decently tanky, but I will say, the problem is we are using Admiral, right? I wanted to try out Admiral and Doryani so we can go try Elemental and abuse Doryani since it's like the most broken item on mercs right now. It worked out okay overall. It does work for the tri-elemental, but as a Trickster, you're sort of throwing if you're not using a big necrotic armor, right? We could have 2,000 more ES and just like way more aura effect and stuff like that. The implicits are too strong. It's just way too much of a power in the Trickster for a big necrotic armor versus using Admiral. The Admiral's okay-ish, right? We got the corruption for +2, but overall, I think not going necrotic is a bit of a throw on Trickster. So the rest of the build is just ES, pretty solid damage overall. Not great. We can swap to Reap, as you saw in the video for bosses. I swap Reap in 1-for-1 with Exsanguinate for a single target. It really depends on if there's ads in the fight. If there are a lot of ads, Reap, the blood charges gets reset constantly. So if there's a lot of ads in a specific boss fight, say Uber Elder, not very good, just use Exsanguinate. But otherwise, you can use Reap for a bigger single target, and then you put Vol Reap on the side with Arcanus Brand. I take out cast when damage taken and my Immortal Call here, and swap that in. So I drop the Arcanus Brand, that will do Reap level 1. That will just get you blood charges until you get 5 stacks, which is 100% more damage, and then you can use Vol Reap for +4 more charges, so that's another 80% more damage on the Reap that is in the trap links from the 6th link. And overall, the Whispers Infinity is very strong. That means you don't have to care about mana. Everything is ES based. I do think it's a little bit bugged because you can see right here, my Exsanguinate costs 0. My Reap also costs 0, which shouldn't be the case. It should be ES cost, right? So if I unequip this, you can see right here it costs 163. When I re-equip it, 163 ES. But if you equip the gem after the Whispers has been equipped on the build, yeah, it costs 0. So I'm pretty sure it's some kind of bug calculation with that. So free cost, I guess. That does help with some mods, and it doesn't cost anything. But otherwise, overall, decently strong build. That probably better as mines. Interesting using the Whispers of Infinity that got released this league. And yeah, solid overall. Alright, so this is the merc I've been using for the Doryani's prototype. Doryani's prototype, right? If you can get it implicit, great. The main thing is we reflected a cogwork ring here for only 2 mods you care about: damage taken as recovered and negative lightning res, obviously. We are using Calandra's Touch to double it. So one annoying thing is usually when I start up the game, I have to unequip and re-equip the ring for the Calandra's Touch to work. Right now it's at negative 85 res, right? And now it's negative 200. So that's a bit annoying, but it's much cheaper to do this than to make another one of these rings, right? In the belt, we have Comb's Binding to convert some of the Fizz to Elemental for some Fizz mitigation and Hatred effect, because we are really scaling the Hatred for damage here. He also has Purity Ice. These are the main 2 things you want to look for this merc. Everything else doesn't matter. The Vol Glacial Hammer is very obnoxious. Sometimes it can trap you and the merc can grief you because it makes a circle that you either have to have phasing or flame dash or whatever movement skill to get out of. So that's pretty annoying. Dawn Strider, so it can't attack, so it can't die to reflect damage. The gloves are just res life, nothing really important. Same thing with the helmet. The implicits are regen if he's hit recently, so the enemy can't regen. And increased AoE. The increased AoE does increase his aura range, so that's why we are getting increased AoE there. And for his weapon, the only mod I'm looking for really is the Hatred aura effect. We put attack speed so he procs the no regen if he's attacked recently. But you're just looking for a Hatred, and that is my merc. I'll go over the gems really quickly. Forbidden Right, Ball Lightning, Blazing Salvo. We just use this to trigger Enduring Composure, and these are just for ES gain on hit from the Watcher's Eye to get some recovery. Herald of Purity, Herald of Ash, Enlighten, Discipline, Vault Discipline in particular, so that's recovery if we need it. If we get low, you just press Vault Discipline to start recharge. In my shield, we have Cast 1 Damage Taken, Immortal Call for some defense, Flesh and Stone. We use Stone Stance, 21% less damage if they're in our aura. Reap, Trap Support, awaken fire damage, empower, trap mine damage, and charge trap. Usually we play Exsanguinate, but for single target I put in Reap. And then I swap out the Mortal Call and cast 1 damage taken for Vol Reap and Arcanist Brand level 1. You just need them level 1. These are just to proc the blood charges. In the gloves, Precision, Assassin's Mark, Awaken Unbound Ailments with Skitterbots for bigger shock and chill from the Skitterbots. Shield Charge, Flame Dash, faster attacks for movement, Bear Trap for a bit of more damage, 25% more damage taken from traps. And that is the gems. I'm going to go over the gear really quickly for the build. As far as the rings go, we're just looking for ES, ES Max, ES Flat, and Evasion on the prefixes. You just need to Dense Fossil spam until you get both ESs, and then you do Reforge. Defenses with prefixes can't be changed to force the evasion. You really want the evasion for the mastery here. It gives you 20% more max ES if both rings have an evasion explicit, and defense Reforge will only force evasion flat. So that's pretty easy. Suffixes, I use the Veiled Chaos Orb, and we're looking for some kind of stats because we need the stats for requirement. And then res, hopefully, we slammed on, was it T3 cold here? And this one we slammed on all res, which is fine, or all attributes, and then crafted res, and that's it. The Scepter has the trigger mod. I bought this fractured randomly. It's just easier. I wasn't really looking for the trigger, but it is quite nice. It does Forbidden Right, which is how I'm getting my Enduring Composure charges, because it hits our cell. But because we're Trickster, it lasts 30 seconds. Otherwise, you would just do Forbidden Right every 30 seconds, which is fine. Also has a downside of bricking my Ghost Shards, or Ghost Shrouds. It hits my Ghost Shrouds every time I cast Forbidden Right, so that is a bit of a downside. So you can just do it manually every 30 seconds. We have Ball Lightning and Blazing Salvo. The only point of those two spells at level 1 is just to shoot out a bunch of projectiles, because we are using ES gain on hit, Discipline Watcher's Eyes, because I wanted to do some risk mods from the Risk Scarab. It overall was decent recovery, but honestly, I don't think it was good enough to invest in it, because since we're using traps, we don't get recovery through that. These 3 triggered skills just don't hit enough, realistically, to be worth ES on hit Discipline Watcher's Eye. So that was a bit of a fail. I mean, it does a little bit, but not enough compared to like a self-caster, because our traps don't count as us. So when they hit, we don't get ES, which is our main skill that we use. But it was okay. If you can afford it, sure. But otherwise, I wouldn't think too much about it. The shield is just like plus spell damage, crit, life. We have crafted suppression here to suppression cap. Helmet, biggest ES helmet you can find, obviously. It's just like Trickster, right? Admiral for the chest. Get corruption for +2 duration, or +1 socketed for all gems, since we are using Empower. That means it's slightly better than +2 duration. The belt is just a big ES belt with trap throw speed on suffix, strength, res. Gloves. The fractured +2 mind chain is very nice. It gives us our insane clear. Exsanguinate already has great clear, and usually you have a chain with Exsanguinate for most builds, but this gives you 2 chain just innate, just like from the mod, right? The infamous mod, so that's really strong with Exsanguinate for clear. We are getting my conversion through here. I did the Veiled Chaos Orb on the prefix. We got physical conversion here, and then we got conversion 25% on the implicit. Between those two is 60%, and then 40% on the tree for full conversion of the Phys to Elemental for Exsanguinate. You're just looking for suppression, res, boots, same thing, suppression, fractured, whatever you can get. And on the prefix, you're just looking for as much ES evasion as possible. You really want flat, and then you craft on hybrid percent. But I got the T1%, which I slammed on, so it is what it is. And we're using a Void Shock here, and on implicits through a Storm Shroud to get ailment immunity. And the last piece of item for the amulet is a Whisper's Infinity. This is the new thing they add this league. It gives you a ton of ES, and it makes all your things cost ES, which allows us to go CI. Normally, Exsanguinate and Reap cannot go CI, because you can see here, they cost life cost. But if you swap a Whisper's Infinity on, they cost ES cost. There is a bug, not sure why, but if you equip it after the Whisper's Infinity, the cost goes to 0. Not sure why, but same thing for Reap here. 0. If you have it equipped before this amulet, 163, which is what you would expect. But for whatever reason, if you equip it after the amulet's already equipped, it goes to 0. And that is the gear. Actually, the flask, right? Life flask. This is just we don't actually recover life, but it just has the most charges. So I'm using this because we are just using this for bleed immunity. We have a CB jewel, but you do get bled occasionally, so you do need a anti-bleed flask. And there's not really that many great flasks for ES builds if you're not using certain unique flasks, so not that many good options. So I just left that. Taste of Hate. We are Fizz Convert. Also gives us some fire and lightning damage to counter some of the pen from attacks from those two elements. Quicksilver, Jade Flask, Quartz for phasing. I'll go over the tree really quickly. We are using one step ahead just because I was doing a lot of T17s and 16.5s on the build. So that's quite nice to be immunity against action speed modifiers for those mods. Swift Killer is really nice for charge duration, plus 2 frenzies for damage and throw speed. Escape Artist, of course, and Spellbreaker. We are really strong against spells because you can see right here we are 66% spell damage prevented at full ES. That means spells really do a third damage, so we can tank them pretty well on this build. And through Ghost Dance, if it's a multi-hit, the first 2-3 hits basically heals us back at full ES, so we can take 1/3 damage for like 2 or 3 hits, especially for multi-hit skills. You can see right here, I have tattooed all the decks. We replaced 10 nodes with stun avoidance. That's how I'm getting my stun avoidance as a CI build. Nothing too interesting here. This light and meaning increased physical damage. A lot of damage, you can see. We do 220,000 at least tooltip. Without this, 185. So this and it has a lot of synergy because we have a lot of fizz nodes here. We're going up here, nothing too special. Life ES, get as much ES as you can, some aura effect. We had to do this to get our conversion, 40% lightning. This gives us sap, and we have 60% on the gloves. So that's pretty nice. I POB'd this. It turns out increased defenses is better than is worth the reduction in attributes, so that's pretty nice. Wicked Ward is pretty nice with the spell suppression spellbreaker node. As soon as we suppress one skill, we just recharge. And with our recharge rate, we basically go to full. So that's pretty nice. This cluster jewel is a Battle Hardened Force multiplier iron breaker. Just fizz damage because we are using hatred from the merc. So that's if we scale our fizz damage, we get a lot of extra as cold through that aura. The Megalomaniac here gives us Enduring Composure. That's really the main skill you're looking for, and then you get whatever mod you can find. What else is special? Right here, Lethal Pride. This is just for strength, to get my strength requirement done. And we have 20% fizz, 20% fizz, 5% is extra, fire, and double damage. So pretty nice overall. Get whatever you can get. We don't care about that mod. We're not really using the Keystone mod for that. So it's just for strength stats and extra damage. Watcher's Eye is a hatred, cold damage, crit multi-precision. Crit multi-precision is the most damage you can get. You can also get other hatred mods. And Discipline Watcher's Eye, life gain, ES gain on hit is quite nice for recovery. Not the best, like I said, it's solid overall, but not really that as good as I wanted it to be. And that is basically the build. Nothing too special for the rest of the tree. Alright, thanks for watching.